In this lesson, I am going to teach how to pick a lock using a pick tool. This is the most classic way of picking a lock, and it requires some practice. It's considered more advanced than picking a lock using a rake tool, which we are going to learn in the next lesson. Pick tool is a general name for a tool lockpickers use to engage individual pins inside of the cylinder. There are many different types of pick tools. The most common ones are the hook pick, the diamond pick, and the half diamond pick. The hook is the most basic pick tool, and it's generally the tool we use when picking a lock in the traditional way. Choosing which pick tool to use is mostly a matter of preference. One small difference between the hook and the diamond style is that with the hook we try to get under the pin to push it up. Whereas the diamond pick or the half diamond pick will slide much easier under the pins, making it better for tight keyways. This is a cutaway cylinder. For the first part of the demonstration, I left pins only in one chamber, the third one. So once I set this pin, the cylinder will unlock. You can see that even though the cylinder is locked, the plug can still rotate slightly. This rotation is important for the lockpicking process. Using the tension wrench, we need to apply turning pressure to the plug. You need to place the tension wrench in the very bottom part of the cylinder and keep a steady pressure on it. Learning how much pressure to apply to the tension wrench requires some practice. If the pressure is too light, the pins will not set. If it's too strong, the pins can get caught between the plug and the housing. To get the right amount of pressure, you need to rest the weight of your finger on the tension wrench and press on it very lightly. You want to get the plug to turn without putting too much pressure on the pins. You can see how the plug turns just a tiny bit before being stopped by the pin in the shear line. While keeping the pressure on the tension wrench, we need to use the pick tool to slowly push up on the pin until the top pin aligns with the shear line. As soon as it aligns with the shear line, the plug will be free to turn. Now I will repeat the process, this time with pins in two of the chambers. When I turn the plug with the tension wrench, it will now be stopped only by one of those two pins. That pin is called the binding pin. When picking a lock, we don't know which one of the pins is the first binding pin. So still with tension on the tension wrench, we need to find it and push it up to cause it to stay above the shear line. The binding pin stays above the shear line, leaning on a very small edge created by the turn of the plug. Once I set the binding pin, the bottom pin will fall back down into the plug, and the plug will turn just a tiny bit, stopped by the second pin, which is now our new binding pin. Once I set the second pin, the cylinder is unlocked, and the plug will be free to turn. There are two ways to know that you set a pin. First, with every pin you set, the plug will turn just a tiny bit towards unlocking position. However, this turn of the plug is not always noticeable. The second way is by the weight of the pin. In each chamber, there is a set of two pins and a spring. The spring constantly pushes the pins downwards. After you set a pin, the bottom pin disengages from the top pin, and therefore the spring pressure is no longer applied to the bottom pin, making the bottom pin much lighter to lift with the pick tool. When you lift the pin with the pick tool and feel that it's much lighter than usual, you know that the pin is set. Let's repeat the picking demonstration, now with pins in 5 of the chambers. Remember, Most residential locks have 5 pairs of pins, and most commercial locks have 6 pairs. First, we apply turning pressure with a tension wrench. Remember, since we don't know which pin is the binding pin, we need to move pin by pin until we find it. For this demonstration, I'm going to use the half diamond pick. Now we use the half diamond pick to find the binding pin and set it by slowly pushing it up. So pin number 3 is our first binding pin. Now as I set it, I can proceed to look for the new binding pin. Pin number 4 is now set. Pin number 5. Pin number 2. And now once the first pin will be set, the plug will turn. Now I will demonstrate what happens if you release the tension from the tension wrench as you pick. You can see that now I've set 3 of the pins. Releasing the tension from the tension wrench, even for a split second, will cause all the pins to unset, and you'll have to start over. Remember that using pick tools can be somewhat challenging at first. It takes time and practice to become good at it. In the next lesson, you will learn another way for picking locks, called raking, which is a great way for beginners to start practicing lockpicking.